In my family, there were three things that you could count on when you got together. Number one, card games. In the Meyer family, you had to play cards. Euchre and sheepshead were the staples of every big family get-together. Second, great food. There was always plenty of delicious food to graze on at every family gathering. And last, deer hunting. This was mostly an activity for the Meyer men, but there were years when some of the Meyer ladies got involved as well. That's me. I grew up with a camera pointed at me. When the camera was pointed at you, you were sort of expected to perform in some way. Be silly. Answer questions from the man behind the camera. Oh, and the man behind the camera was my dad. His name is Dale. He's also a character in this story. I like to say that there are actually 10 main characters in this story. 3 of them, though, are not people. Let's start with the video camera. This is the first video camera that I would get to know. It didn't record any sound, so the early years of my life were like recording an old Charlie Chaplin film. Later in my life, my dad would buy 2 other cameras. We took them to just about every family gathering that I can remember. Without the video camera being around, I wouldn't have this story to tell. It captured everything that you are about to see. It's more of a background character, but it's an important one. The next 2 characters are pickup trucks. Yeah, you heard me right, pickup trucks. My Uncle Jim's blue 1978 Ford, and my Uncle Denny's red Chevy Silverado. You'll see why they're important later in our story. Then there are the Meyer men. There's Jerry, Jim, Dale, Denny, Bob, Tom, and me, Jason. The setting was Gordon, Wisconsin. The year was 1991. And this is Gordon, 1991. The men, the myths, the legends.
One last hunt in Gordon to honor a great man. We sure made some memories in that sacred land. We know Jerry's looking down, smiling once again, thinking about that trip in 91 with the men, myths, and legends. We were men, myths, and legends.
Jerry, he wanted to make a drive. Well, they know this one spot we can make a drive. So, anyways, he says, I'll go climb up there with a tree or tree stand. I don't really know where he was, but he was up high enough he could see the drivers. And we was supposed to go out through in the swamp, out through the bushes, and make a drive for him. Well, that snow was so cotton picking deep.
Yeah.
And Bob, I still remember, we was walking along and he says, I think I pulled a muscle in my leg. He says, oh, that hurts when I walk. He said, well, let's head back. Jerry was watching us, and all I could see, hear him grumbling, oh, what a bunch of whoops. We couldn't even make a drive for him.
Yeah.
Well, he was up in a tree, and we were supposed to go way all around through the swamp, and about 30 inches of snow.
Easier said than done, right?
So, before we got completely back to him, I remember he got down on the tree, and he was walking back to the truck, and we was walking like little puppies back behind him, and he was grumbling and all the way back to the truck.
Yeah.
Well, that was our deer hunt. And then we got back to the trucks, and he said, let's go, I don't know what, that special tavern that they used to stop in. He said, let's go back and we might as well have a beer. If we ain't gonna hunt, we might as well have a beer. So that's where we went, and that's kind of what I remember of the trip.
I just talked with Harlan Westhead about a hunting area. He just got back from up there. He said the snow is this deep, and then you break through the crust. It's this deep.
How did the whole Gordon trip actually start? Not the 1991 trip, but the origin of Gordon.
Well, the origin of Gordon was the fact that there were no deer in Sauk County. So the hunters had to go up north to find the deer. And my grandfather, Henry Meyer, was the first one in the group of family that went up there. And he went up there, he had a hunting crew of about 6 or 8 men that went up there every year. When they started, they would take a train. There was no interstate. And he would go up, first he would go up to his brother-in-law, Reiner Wilkins's place in Clark County. And then they would meet there, and then they would go from there to northern Wisconsin, Douglas County, which is the farthest north that they could get. After the cars started going, they started taking trucks. They'd ride in the back of a truck. My dad remembers a time when he went up and the younger people sat in the back of the truck, and the younger people, or the older people, got to ride in the front. Okay. So he remembers a time when they were going on the roads, but this is before the interstate, and they went through a small town that had a railroad crossing. And they were sitting in the back. The 4 people in the back were playing cards, and they had a kerosene lantern, and they had a canvas over the back. You couldn't see out. Mm-hmm. And they heard the train coming, and they figured, well, the driver of the truck's going to stop for that railroad track. It's up in front. But he didn't stop. He just kept going. Mm-hmm. And they kind of put their hands over their ears and waited for the crash. Mm-hmm. And there was no crash because it was a underpass. The road went underneath the railroad track, and the train went right over top.
Okay.
They had a lot of activity and a lot of fun times up there. Mm-hmm. And they always rented a cabin from the Baker family.
Okay.
On Sims Lake for some 30-some years when my dad was hunting. My grandpa went up there, mm-hmm. Uncle Lawrence went up there, okay. And all the old hunters went up to Baker's cabin.
So the Sims Lake, but the Baker family was the owner of the land.
Yes,
probably.
They had 2 cabins up there on Sims Lake.
Okay.
And they rented these 2 cabins out to the Meyer group.
Got it.
It was a standing reservation every
okay.
And they'd leave on Friday night, mm-hmm. and they would hunt until Thanksgiving.
Okay.
If they had something, they would come back on Thanksgiving to spend it with the family. If they didn't get their lot, then they would stay the weekend because it was a 9-day season.
Okay. And how long were those trips? Do you know? Like how many days would they stay up there?
The whole time.
The whole time.
From
about 9 days.
They would leave on Friday morning.
Yeah.
And drive all day Friday.
Yeah.
They always made 2 stops. They made a stop at Black River Falls, mm-hmm. to go through the zoo to show the rookie people that were first-time hunters what a deer looked like.
Yeah.
That was the purpose of that.
Was that a joke, kind of a joke? Or
no, we actually stopped there.
This is what a deer looked, because you didn't have deer in Sauk County, so they wanted to, was that the deal or what?
It was a joke.
Okay,
it was an initiation
yeah,
thing.
Well, that's what I asked.
No,
yeah.
we knew what deer looked like.
Right. But
the second stop was always at the Buckhorn Tavern in Rice Lake.
Okay.
Now keep in mind, this is an all-day trip,
mm-hmm.
like 8-hour trip. Mm-hmm. This is before the interstate was put.
Right.
And I remember in 1961, I believe it was, when John Kennedy was shot. Uh-huh. That's where we walked in for dinner, and that's the first time we knew that the President of the United States was shot.
Okay.
So I remember that Pacific hunt as that day of walking in there and having a hamburger, watching TV.
Okay. Another story I was always interested in, I think you would mention it, and I wanted to know what the story was behind that. And maybe I was confused by what you said earlier with the train, but I recall either you or Jim telling me stories of Grandpa Clarence taking a train from Reedsburg, like a freight train, up to Gordon. From getting on at Reedsburg, I recall you saying something like that at one point.
No, I believe you got that mixed up. It would have been Henry.
Okay, so that was
Henry,
right.
And they would they would have a hunters meeting before they left, and they would be assigned things to take up.
Okay.
Either I would imagine it started when they were on the train, but because they did their own cooking up there.
Okay.
So my dad was assigned the cooking detail up there. So he would take pots and pans, and he had a list of stuff he needed.
Yep.
And then we'd always stop off when we got up to Douglas County. We'd stop off in Gordon, Wisconsin, and buy groceries. Yeah, for the week. And so my dad had a grocery list that he could cook.
Yeah.
There was a lot of bacon and eggs and milk and stuff like that. My first year was the year John Kennedy was killed. I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay. All right.
Okay, and then I followed up 3 years in a row, and then I went in the Navy, and I didn't go again until I was married, and that was my last time in 1970, I believe it was.
Okay. And then that was the last time before the 1991 trip.
Yes.
Okay.
1991 was a conversation between me and Denny and Jim. And we decided that this might be the last year that Jerry would go up hunting with us because he had leukemia and he was under treatment. And we thought, well, we would like to go, and Jerry wanted to go too. So we talked to Jerry and he said, yeah, I'd love to go back in the old days and go to that same land that we did. And it was a memory, walk down memory lane. So the four brothers decided that we would go. And then we'd say, well, who should we take with us? Well, the only ones that could go were the other three. And Jerry picked his son, Tom, and I picked you. And we had to have enough people. And then we wanted Bob Meyer, because Bob had hunted not up there. I don't think he ever went up there before. I think that was his first time. He had hunted around in Sauk County after the deer came. So he was one of our original 12 guys that we had our hunt down in Sauk County.
Okay. Now there's a scene in our movie where you come in the door here, and there's some people just kind of in the room. I think Jen was there, and Mom was there, and you were telling, I think, probably those people in the room about I think it was a Wested had let you know what Gordon was like already. He must have been up there, and do you remember that little
Yes, I do.
interaction?
Okay.
What do you remember from that?
Okay, I remember Harlan Wested. Okay, Harlan Wested was a relative of Lori Moko and her dad, Walter, and they also went up to Gordon. Walter, I believe, had gone up there. Walter Meyer. He may not have gone with us, but he was up there. Plus, there was a Hill Point group that always went up there. Gordy Mewey and all the Newman brothers.
Sure.
And Harlan would have probably been with that group.
Okay.
And they went up every year. So we got our information from them that there's still deer there. You can still hunt there. And so we were enthused about going back up.
Yeah, that was okay. Cool.
But that's who Harlan is.
Yep. All right. So you gotta. Did you bump into him somewhere, or did he call you, or don't remember?
No idea.
Yeah. Okay.
I have no idea.
All right. So, do you remember any preparation, packing, or any of the night before? Do you remember exactly when we went? All of that.
Well, we would have gone on a Friday.
Okay.
But it didn't take as long to get up there as it used to because of the interstate. And except for our accident, it slowed us down a little bit.
Yeah.
It would have been a Friday.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what the date, and you can probably look back on that calendar and find out what day that was of the month.
Yep.
But it would have been a day before opening day season.
Okay.
And we were going to go up there, and we were going to walk through the same roads, because I even made some maps of my memory of which sections were good hunting that I learned from my dad.
Yeah. So let's stay with the before the trip. So where did you all? We all gathered somewhere.
We gathered up at Denny's.
Okay. Talk about that a little bit.
And
What do you remember from the gathering? And
well, I remember we had we figured that the seven of us could fit into two trucks.
Okay. Talk about those.
Because Denny's truck had a back seat. And so then we kind of decided up at Denny's who was going to ride in which truck. Okay, some people are compatible with other. You didn't want to ride with me, I think. You wanted to ride with your uncles instead of.
So who did you ride with?
I rode with my brother Jim, who
Okay.
drove the truck,
Okay.
and my brother Jerry,
Okay.
who was in the middle, and I was on the outside.
Okay.
Those are the three on this. The other four, Denny drove his red pickup, as I recall it was red. Jim's was blue. Tom Meyer was in there. Bob Meyer was in there. And you were in there. That's the four that I remember.
Okay.
Am I right on that?
There's a little disagreement amongst the men about who was in Jerry's truck, whether you or Tom was in which truck, who was leading, who was not.
Tom was in your truck.
Okay.
I was in Jim's truck.
Okay. Well,
Why did they say I was in?
well, we weren't 100%. So maybe that's a myth. Maybe that's a legend. We'll find out.
Okay. Well,
So we'll get into that in a little bit.
all right.
So anything else from Denny's farm before we left? Because that's where we all left from.
Right, and
Denny's.
we all made sure that we each had one working rifle at that time.
Okay,
There's
so-
7 rifles.
We started with
Seven men.
7 rifles, 7 men. Okay.
That could be the name of the
Oh, there
movie.
you go. We got a subtitle. I like
Okay.
it.
Later on, we didn't have 7 rifles.
All right. Well, so then we left. What do you know how early in the day it was when we left? About? Was it early? Was it like 10 o'clock ish? Was it like?
I don't think it was as early as we normally started out because of the roads were a little bit better normally.
Yeah.
But it was starting to get nasty
Yeah.
as we left Denny's, but not very bad. It was still pleasant day.
Okay. All right. So as you alluded to, there was some issues on the interstate. Why don't you walk us through what your memory of the interstate was?
Okay, as I remember, if I'm correct with who's in which vehicles, and your other stories are wrong, we went first as compared to Denny.
Who's we?
Jim driving.
Okay. What was Jim driving?
His blue, I think it's a Ford pickup truck that he had for many years, before and after that. Okay, and when we got up that area of just before you get to Oakdale on I-90, is that 94? I-94. No, it's I-90, 94. It's together there before you get to Toma. Okay, we noticed that it was getting slick. And Jim made the comment, "Boy, these roads are getting slick." Okay, on our left side, in the medium, it's a divided highway. And people were going north and people were going south. We were going north. And we noticed that there was a van. And the van had left the roadway and tipped over and was in the median, sitting basically turned the opposite way that we were. So it spun around and flipped over. And we could tell that there was some activity in there, that there was live people. It didn't happen a year ago. It happened right a few minutes ago. Okay, so me being a police officer with a history, I have to help these people. Jerry, on the other hand, being a civilian, and Jim being a civilian, said, "No, let's get out of here because it's slippery." I said, "Pull over." So we pulled over. Then Denny saw that we pulled over, and he pulled up around us and parked in front of us. And then Tom got out, being a police officer, and he saw it too, and there was no debate. We just had a small conversation, me and Tom, that we got to help those people. He said, "Jim, come with me." So Jim and Tom went over to help the people in the van that was upside down, leaving Jerry alone in my and Jim's pickup, and you and Tom and Denny and Bob. No, Tom had left, so you only had 3 of you left in the van, and you just sat there in the truck. Jerry immediately said, "Oh, I wonder if this CDB works. I'll call in." So he was calling all the truckers, like he thought that all the truckers would be talking on CB and, hey, good buddy, there's an accident, call the police, type of a thing. And he couldn't get it to work, so he's changing channels, and he's down on the seat, leaned down with his head toward the steering wheel. Okay, because he was in the middle, and so he was trying to work on get the ignition on and everything to get that CD. In the meantime, I was seeing that Tom and Jim had gone across the median. They were in a safe area because the traffic was going by. I decided to see if I could direct traffic, which I had a history of knowing how to do. And so I was telling the people to slow down, and I was waving my hands, and I was getting no attention whatsoever. Cars were still going 65 miles an hour, it seemed like, going by. And as they come onto that ice, they saw the following. They saw me waving my hands. They saw the vehicle upside down, pedestrians walking across the street, 2 vehicles parked alongside the way, and they went bananas. They slammed on the brakes, and they went slipping, zipping all the way. One car came by me where I was standing behind Jim's truck, and he swerved around, went sideways, and went into the ditch. I believe that was a guy that asked for a shovel to get out, which we didn't have a shovel. We had guns, but no shovel. The second vehicle came and come down the hill, and I could see it coming, and I jumped out of the way. I was between Jim's bumper and that vehicle. This was driven by a little lady, and she came sideways, and she slammed into Jim's vehicle with her driver's side. She spun completely around and ran into the back and sat there. And the whole front, the whole side of her car was dented in. Unable for anyone to get her out. They had to get the jaws of life finally to get her out. In the meantime, I went over to her and tried to talk to her, but she wouldn't respond. I checked for a pulse in the neck through the window, which I can't remember if the door was jammed open. I think it was. I don't think it was a broken window that I reached through. I think it was a door that was slightly ajar, that I tried to find a pulse, and I could not find a pulse. I wrote her off as being deceased. I was wrong. She did have a pulse. I just was too nervous to find it, I guess. Anyway, I then jumped out of the way because other cars were going out of control coming down. One idiot pulls over in his car, jumps out, and goes over and gets down on his knees, and he's talking to this lady who doesn't talk, and he's trying to tell her that we're going to call an ambulance for you, you'll be all right. And I told him, get out of there, otherwise you're going to get hit with the cars, because they were still out of control. I don't know how many cars went out of control there, but it was ridiculous for I would say 10 minutes. It seemed like longer, but probably 10 minutes of uncontrollable traffic jams. At that point in time, Jim and Tom had been successful in getting the people out of the van. No one there that I know of in the van was injured. They just couldn't get out of the van. He helped them out. They helped them out. They then came to my area. I went over to see Jerry, and Jerry's bleeding from I think his lip, where he cut his lip. And Jim asked me, is everybody all right? Or Jim or Tom, one of them. And I said, well, Jerry got a cut, but then your truck is smashed up. So that was the first they seen the results of what was there, because they were across the street. Then we all got out of the area, leaving the 2 vehicles there and the accident there, and we went up next to the off the road, next to the fence that goes along the woods there, and waited. And it probably was 10 minutes, but it seemed like an hour and a half. A squad car, state patrol, came to our scene and put on its red lights, and then people actually slowed down. And then a few minutes later, a truck came along and they spread salt, I believe it was salt or sand, on that area. And then half an hour later, then the wrecker came, and the jaws of life and the fire trucks and all that came and got the lady out. But then when we were ready to go, traffic was flowing regular, because it was not icy anymore.
Yeah. Okay. You were going to go. What was the purpose of the trip? Like, was there a reason behind it?
Yeah, because Jerry found out he had leukemia, the way I understand, and he wanted to go up one last time while he still could.
Okay. So, prior to that trip, had you been to Gordon before? And if so, do you remember about how many times you were in Gordon?
I think I did. I think, yeah, I went up a time or two.
Okay.
I can't remember what years.
Sure. Were you young, like a teenager at the time?
No,
Older than
no,
that? Okay.
No, I usually had to stay home and do chores.
Okay.
So,
And prior to you going, I mean, do you remember, like, how did that trip even start? Was that Grandpa Clarence and his brother Lawrence, or?
Yeah, they kind of started, I guess. I don't really recall because I didn't get to go. I can't even remember the first year I went. I think I went up a couple times before that trip.
Okay.
Because I know I went up the year the Jonestown massacre was. I don't know what year that was.
Okay.
I went up that year.
Interesting. Okay, so the purpose of the trip that year in 1991 was because we wanted to go up one more time for
Well, Jerry wanted to go up, and
Yeah.
he wanted to get everybody to go, so I went up.
So it was maybe his idea, you think?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, possibly.
Your dad would probably know more about it than I would.
Okay. Do you remember anything prior to, like, the preparation for you going to Gordon? What you had to take care of before you left? Anything like that?
Just had to get somebody to do chores, and that was basically it.
Yeah.
And grab my gun and go.
Yeah. Do you remember? So in 1991, you were just getting. I think the new addition to your house was sort of right about that year. Do you remember?
You probably know more about it than I do.
Yeah, just because I saw the video already.
Oh, okay.
And also, was your truck new at that time? Did you have a new truck?
Yeah.
Anything you want to tell me about the new truck that you remember?
Well, I was trying not to scratch it.
Okay.
It was, that was our Chevy Silverado, red one.
Yeah.
And I think that was our first new vehicle.
Brand new vehicle that, okay.
That we bought.
Yep. Do you have any specific memories of the way up, the drive up on the interstate? Paint a picture of what was that all about? What happened that you remember from your memory?
That day, I remember I had to get up at 2 or 3 in the morning or 4. And get all my chores done and get to drive up there, and I started out driving, and because we had to get going by 8 o'clock, or I can't remember exactly the time they wanted to get going, so we got up there at a decent time. So I got up early and I got my chores done early that morning. And we got going possibly the time they wanted to go, and everything was smooth. We got up to Boston and headed on the interstate, and everything was going, and I was going pretty decent clip at the time, and then noticed that it was getting a little slippery, so I slowed down a little bit. And do you want me to tell you all the way up to the accident, or what?
Yeah, what do you remember?
Well, I just remember that we were. I'm trying to think of who I had in my vehicle. I think you were.
I was in the back.
Yeah, and
Bob?
Bob was in there. There's 4 of us, I think, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I don't know who was in the back seat with you.
Was Tom with us, or was Tom with? I don't recall. I think Tom might have been with us.
He might have been the 4th one in
Yeah,
there.
we'll have to ask Tom if he remembers.
But we were driving along and noticed it was a little icy, and then we seen a van upside down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Tom might have been with us, because then I don't know were we ahead?
I think so.
And was it Tom that decided that we should stop?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, then Tom, and then your dad was in the other vehicle.
Or maybe my dad was with us.
He might have been with us.
And Tom was in the other
Was
one.
there were 5 of us in there?
Well, it would have been, there were 7 total, so 4 and 3 probably.
Okay. Well, I think Jim was with Jerry. Or Jerry was with Jim because it was Jim's truck.
Mm-hmm.
And then we pulled over, and Tom and your dad and Jim, I think, run across the road to get them ladies out of the van, upside down van. And I got out and I run back up the interstate trying to get people to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is what I think I did, and I wasn't having any luck.
Yeah.
And people were going sliding and slipping, and they were going 70 miles an hour or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that semi doing the old fishtail. Then I remember this one guy did a 360, and he run the ditch up ahead of us. And he come back, and I don't know if we had a shovel. And I remember, and then that lady, I was trying to get people back in there, and I had, I needed one more person to get the heck out of there, and I was watching in my mirror, and I seen that lady come, and I said, duck, and then bang, and then I just got out, and I said, let's head for the trees, and we jumped over the fence and stood, I said, let's stand behind the oak tree, let them, if everybody's going to come and kill themselves, let them come, because there's no...
Your survival instinct kicked in then.
Well,
at that point. Yeah.
I thought, well, what else is there to do?
Yeah.
You can't get people.
Yep.
And then the cops came, and then people started slowing down.
Yeah. So once we all got out and everything, and then the incident's over with, and we moved forward. We decided to get off and kind of sit at a restaurant and kind of figure out what the game plan was going to be. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember before that we, I don't know if Jim's truck or if we were stuck or whatever. Anyways, the cops told the tow truck to hook on to us. Well, he pulled us like from here to there, and then I remember the cops saying, "Are you going to pay the tow truck or whatever?" And the tow truck driver said, "No, just forget about it." I mean,
yeah.
But we went up there, and I remember up there, we should have just continued on, went up to the next thing, and called the cops and let them take care of it rather than stop. But your dad and Tom being cops, they decided, well, we got to help them out at the time. But it was a dangerous. Luckily, nobody got killed on that situation.
Absolutely, yeah. So I always wondered, like, because we didn't have cell phones at the time, right? We didn't have any of that.
They were supposed to have walkie-talkies.
There were walkie-talkies in the truck and stuff, but they didn't work real well.
No.
But did anybody make phone calls home to say, hey, this just happened, this accident just happened, or did we wait to tell people until we got back?
I don't think nobody knew about it till we got back.
Okay, was that a decision that you guys decided that would maybe make the wives a little bit upset?
I don't think
we didn't
at
think
that
of it.
time nobody had a cell phone. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe your dad called home. I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Jim had a pickup truck. I think it was a '78 Ford, blue, that 4-wheel drive, and Denny had a brand new Chevy truck, pretty much brand new anyway. That one I think was kind of a purple or maroon color, and all of us that were going were riding in the two trucks, and Jim's was just a single seat, and I think it was Jim driving, my dad in the middle, and me on the passenger side, and then Tim, I think, was along, Meyer and Denny and your dad, and I think it was just the 6 of us, but there might have been one more. So we started out from somebody's place. I don't know, kind of all got together, or if we got picked up at our houses, I don't remember, but it was predicted that it was going to be a snowstorm. And we finally headed out, and don't remember the time of day, but it seemed like it was pretty, maybe mid-morning. And I remember we got on the interstate and we were going toward Eau Claire, and where we split, we got up by Toma. And I remember it was Toma for some reason right in that area. And we see a van. Well, we had glare ice is what happened. The storm was starting and it turned just to ice. And so we were really going slow, and we see this van in the median upside down with people hanging from their seatbelts. So both of our vehicles pulled off to the side of the road on the interstate, glare ice situation. And I remember your dad and I, being law enforcement, we both headed over there to help the people get down out of their seatbelts and make sure they were okay. We were doing that, and I remember law enforcement was on their way, the troopers were on their way, and traffic was just not slowing down. And so we got back across. I don't even remember where I was exactly in relationship to the trucks, but I think we decided it was slippery enough and people weren't slowing down and didn't know what was going on, that we kind of headed into the wooded area along the side of the interstate between the highway and the fence, and to get behind some trees just in case. And I remember a car, just a little tiny car, spinning out, and she hit the back of Denny's truck. No, she hit Jim's truck first, I think, which pushed it into Denny's truck, which was parked in front. And my dad was still sitting in the middle when Jim's truck got hit, and it pinned the lady that was driving. She had to get jaws of life to get her out. And my dad had gotten a rifle out of the gun rack. His rifle was on the gun rack behind his head, and it hit hard enough that it snapped the stock off of his rifle. I remember that. And then, we finally got going again after everything, and it took us forever to get up there.
Two members of that group that are no longer with us, Bob being one and your dad Jerry being the other. Do you recall any conversations with your dad about him talking about the trip after the fact? After that?
No, they had a lot. I remember on the trip itself, we did a lot of talking that night. At the motels, and we played cards and kind of debriefed each other. I think.
Anything that comes to mind that you would wish to share?
But I remember my dad talking about Jim's truck had been totaled by the insurance. And Dad wasn't real happy about that, and neither was Jim.
And two of us lost our compasses, like on the same. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was one of them.
Okay.
Shell or deeper. And then when we're
Okay, do you remember anything more than
my
that?
dad had given me that compass just before that trip.
Okay.
And because he said you'll need it, and so I put it was one that went on like the zipper of your coat. Or pinned to your coat, something. Because he always had carried one just like it out in Montana when they used to go out there to mule deer hunt and antelope hunt. So he gave me one, and I didn't have it one hunt. It was just that quick. It was gone. So
Okay. I think we must have had the same style of because my dad gave me one as well, and I think I somehow it just disappeared on that same little drive. And I remember talking with you about like, wow, how did we both lose a compass in such a short little time span there? So I wasn't sure if that was.
I didn't remember that. I didn't remember that until you mentioned it. I lost my compass there.
Me and Jerry and Dale and you and Tom and who else?
Bob Meyer.
Bob Meyer was with us?
He went with
That's
us,
right,
too.
yeah, he was.
Yep. And you drove and Denny drove.
Denny drove, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Do you remember what you drove in?
Yeah, I had a 78 Ford pickup, 4-wheel drive. Pretty good pickup for the year back then. But Denny just had a brand new Chevy.
Okay.
I remember. Jerry was with me and maybe your dad, I think.
Okay. So that means that Denny and me and Tom and Bob were in Denny's truck.
Denny's truck, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And so, do you remember anything about the morning of the trip? We left from Denny's house, I guess. Do you remember
I
anything?
think it was the day after Thanksgiving, wasn't it?
Okay.
I think it was.
Okay.
Because we wanted to just hunt the last 3 days up there or something.
Okay. So, do you think is that how I was wondering how long we spent in Gordon. Do you remember how long we were there?
Just a couple of days is all because there's so much snow we couldn't hunt. Kind of a slow trip up, and then we got up on the interstate, and the bridges were getting icy, and people, of course, won't slow down, and that's when we run into the trouble.
And so, do you remember anything about the trouble? There was a vehicle that was overturned.
Yeah, there was a van that was in the medium, upside down, and there was still a woman in the van yet hanging by her seatbelt, and I think it was Tom and I don't know if somebody else went down. We were going to go down and see if she was okay and get her out of the car. And about that time, we looked up and here comes this car doing fishtails on the bridge and slammed in the back of my truck.
And so you were you in the truck at the time, or you were still out of the truck helping the lady?
We were out of the truck. We were down in a medium. Jerry was in the truck yet.
Okay.
He was, from what I understand, back then there was no cell phones. So I had a CB in the truck, and he was leaning. He was in the passenger side. He was leaning over trying to tune in the CB to try to get a hold of somebody to report the accident, the rollover accident, when that woman she hit so hard that we had 3 guns hanging up in a gun rack on the rear window, like we always used to do, and 2 of them snapped the stocks off, or broke the stocks on them. It hit that hard. And Jerry, he was laying down, so he just hit the back of his head. He didn't get hurt. If he'd been sitting upright or something, he probably would have got a neck injury or something. But so he didn't get hurt at all.
So we lost 2 guns that were snapped, and one of them was one of them yours, and one of them Jerry's.
Yeah, something happened to mine. I forget what it was. One of them was it mine, that the barrel got bent on it. But the other 2, I don't know whose. Was it your dad's? I don't know if it was your dad's gun. I know Jerry's gun got.
Jerry's was snapped
because he had some black tape. We tried to tape it up.
Okay, so part of the trip, and back going into the video that we'll see in our movie, there looks like a time when we were looking for a place to fix your gun somewhere. Do you remember driving around?
Yeah, we were driving around trying to find a gunsmith that we could fix the guns. I forget what was wrong with the guns. There were a couple of different things wrong with the guns that we figured we could fix if we could get the parts and stuff for it.
Okay.
And but there was nothing open on Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
That must have been a Friday, wasn't it?
That makes sense. Yeah.
I think it was probably a Friday.
Makes sense.
But anyhow, we couldn't find anything open, so we just kind of cobbled up what we had.
So we made do with what we had then?
What we had, yeah.
Okay. So we got up there. Do you remember anything about... we didn't do a lot of hunting, did we? We really just did one little...
We did, because, let's see, then we had a motel rented, I think, didn't we? Mm-hmm. And we had a motel rented, so we got up to the motel. By that time it was too late to hunt that day. And it was still snowing. And, in the accident, the woman hit the back of my truck and slammed the back end and shoved the spare tire up against the differential, so there was no give to the springs anymore. Everything was tight. It was just rode like crazy. But we drove all the way up there anyhow. My truck got pushed into Denny's truck, did some damage on his truck too. But I don't remember. I remember the lady that hit us. They had to cut her out with a jaws of life to get her out of the car.
Yeah.
But she didn't get hurt real bad, I guess.
Yeah, I had heard the same. Like she wasn't severely injured or anything, but she survived at least, right?
It was just a small car that
Yeah.
kind of got. But then we stayed overnight at the motel, and it snowed all night. Well, the next morning I remember getting up and opening up my truck door, and the truck door was pushing snow. The snow was that deep. It was even with the bottom of the truck door.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of snow.
We had a lot of snow that weekend.
It was all kind of fluffy snow. I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't real
Yeah.
solid stuff. But
So, tell me about what you remember from the drive that we did for. I think we did a drive for Jerry.
yeah.
Tell us about what you remember there.
Jerry had leukemia. Of course, he couldn't walk much. So well, first of all, in order to get there, I put chains on the front of my truck to plow through the snow, and none of the roads were plowed. And so I kind of made a track for Denny. Denny didn't have chains on his truck, so I plowed. So I remember snow coming over the hood. It was so much snow in the road, but we plowed through, got to where we wanted to go, and Jerry found a spot to sit, and he told us to go and make a drive for him. So we did. We spread out and made a drive, and I can remember the snow was so deep that one spot there was a marsh, probably 4 or 5 acres marsh, and right in line where I wanted to go. So I thought, well, I'll just walk through that. But there was marsh grass, and then the snow was the old snow was on top of the marsh grass, and the new snow on top of that. And I got in spots that was way up to my armpits almost in snow. I didn't think I was going to get out of there for a while. Finally, I got all the way through, and Jerry was sitting there, and he says, "You want to make another swing?" He says, "I think I might have saw one." And I said, "No, I don't think I want to make another swing."
You think you were done after all that?
I was done after that.
So we weren't very successful. We didn't see any deer on our actual hunt.
No.
But we got a chance to see what the old Gordon campsites were like and things like that.
I don't know if we ever got back to our original Gordon campsites, did we?
Well, we did.
We might have.
We did, and my dad is telling kind of the group about where he thought everything was, and then he talks a little bit about 2 stories, and I want to get your memory on those 2 stories. One story was Jenny lighting the camp tent on fire.
Oh yeah, I remember that very well.
Go ahead and share what you remember from that.
Well, we had that old oil burner. We had a tent. That was a real cold winter. The opening morning it was like 20 below zero, and so we had an oil burner in the middle of our tent, and we hunted all week. I don't know how long when this was. It must have been close to the end of the season anyhow. And of course, every night we'd play cards, and toward the end, the old oil burner started clogging up, so oil didn't drain down the way it was supposed to out of the tank. It had a tank in the back, a small tank in the back of the oil burner, and so it started getting cold in the tent, and it wasn't draining oil, wasn't feeding any oil for the burner. So instead of, we tried to take it apart and fix it, but we didn't have tools to fix it with or something. We splashed a little oil on the ground, I remember, right underneath the stove, which wasn't a good deal.
Yeah.
So anyhow, then somebody got the bright idea, well, we would just take a cup of fuel, and every time the flame goes on, we'll open the door and throw the cup of fuel in, and it'll flare back up again, and it'll heat up. It worked real good. Well, we were playing cards, and then I don't know how Denny told the story, but from what I remember, in the middle of the night, Denny had the bunk closest to the stove, and so it started getting cold in the middle of the night, so he didn't want to get out of bed, so he just reached over and there was a cup of fuel laying there, and he opened up the hatch on the door, the front of the door. He went to throw the fuel in, and he caught the lip of the cup on the edge of the door and spilled the fuel all the way down. Well, the fire come back out and got on the floor, on the ground where all that other fuel was spilled, and the whole thing was on fire just like that.
Oh man.
And there was. Well, yeah, Gerald Schulte was up there that day too. I remember that because he later, after everybody, of course, hollered, and we were all in our sleeping bags, and we jumped out of the sleeping bags, and ran down. Somebody grabbed a bucket, ran down the Ox Creek and got a bucket of water. And if we'd been thinking, we had a bucket sitting right outside the door, or right by the door. But anyhow, we got the water. We finally got it out before anything too bad got burned, but everything got all soaked and wet. Then we looked at Gerald Schulte's sleeping bag, and he didn't even unzip it. He busted the zipper open. He found it out between the zipper.
Wow.
So then, by that time, everything was wet and we were cold. So we packed up and went home the next morning.
Okay. Do you remember any of the other guys? You mentioned Gerald Schulte, my dad, and Denny. Do you remember any other old timers, if you will, that were used to hunt at Gordon with you?
Yeah, but they weren't in the tent.
No, but
Yeah.
they were maybe at
My dad, Lawrence, and
Okay.
and who else was there? I'm not sure. Well, I know my dad and Lawrence were there.
Sure.
They were. I think they were sleeping. They had their own. Yeah, was that the year that they had their own little cabin they built there? I think, if I remember right.
Okay.
Did your dad say anything about almost getting hit by a car up there?
What do you remember about that? Yeah, go ahead.
All I can remember is that he was trying to kind of, well, of course, he was a member of the police department then, so he was playing policeman, and he was trying to slow the people down. They wouldn't slow down, even when they saw the accident up ahead, they wouldn't slow down. So he walked up the road a little ways, and he was trying to slow them down, and in the meantime, somebody went out of control on that bridge and almost hit him. He just barely got out of the way in time.
Yeah.
That would have really been a disaster. We used to have a lot of fun going up there years ago, but I didn't get up there as many times as Dale and Denny did. They got up there quite a few more times than I did.
Was that because you were helping with on the farm, or were you?
Well, before I joined the Navy, I always had to stay home and do chores. And then I joined the Navy I was gone for 3 years, and they all went up there all those years.
How many generations back do you know about? Like, how long have we been going to Gordon as a?
Well, I think my grandpa Meyer started going up there. I think they used to take the train up there. I think a long time ago. He started it, and then they kept on going from there.
And who would he have gone with? Do you know?
Oh man, I don't really know.
Okay.
I can remember when I was in high school. I had to stay home and do chores, but I can remember Lawrence and Laverne Haas and Walter Meyer. They'd go up there. That one year I remember they had a pickup truck with stock racks on it, open back end, but they had a canvas over the top of it. And so 2 or 3 of them rode up in front, and the rest of them all rode in the back of that truck all the way up there.
Oh.
That had to be a cold ride.
I would think so, boy. And
They were tough back then. Those days.
men were men back then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my dad used to tell how, of course, back then everybody hunted with 30-30s, so they wounded a lot of deer a lot of times. So then they'd get on a deer track and they'd talk about wading through Ox Creek. Deer would cross, and they'd have to wade through Ox Creek and take their boots off and wade through it and put their boots on the other side.
How big was this Ox Creek?
Well, it's not real big.
Yeah.
It's big enough you can't jump across or anything.
Okay.
But no, it was a lot of fun. A lot of years up there they've spent.
Yeah.
Get all the way, Jim. What? Jerry's okay. What? Jerry got hurt a little bit too.
He was in the car?
Yes, he was. I tried to get him out. He bit his tongue.
How about this?
She's pretty bad.
Who was it? Woman?
The lady, Minnesota.
I know. Get the thing on.
Well, that's okay.
What next? Well, the hunters regroup and take a vote about whether to move forward with the trip or return home. Somehow they decide to continue north to Gordon with damaged trucks, broken hunting rifles, and shaken nerves. Undeterred, the men decide to move forward and see what Gordon had in store for them. They arrived late that night, checked into the hotel, and the snow continued to come down. In the morning, this is what the men woke up to.
You guys coming right back after breakfast, or?
What?
You guys coming back after
Yeah.
breakfast, or are you gonna go out?
No, we're coming back after breakfast. Yeah, because I got all this stuff. Yeah, I got to brush my teeth before I go in the woods. Oh, where's Denny's truck? He didn't park that truck there.
I don't know. Bob, where's Denny's truck? Is that it over there?
That'll be it right there.
That's it.
There.
Underneath the snowbank.
Well, why did he park there? Right by the stop sign? That's where he parked.
Take a picture of it,
No, what a
I
dumb
did. This is Denny's truck. How long do you think it'll be before we can get that cleaned up to go hunting? The snow plowed around it.
boy.
Yeah. Hotel where we stayed. St. Croix Inn. Here comes a snowplow. Meyer parks his truck. Any place else in Douglas County is lawful to park, except next to no parking signs.
There, that's good enough.
Isn't that right, Jerry?
What?
Any place in Douglas County is a good place to park except next to a no parking sign.
I would say so. Yeah.
Denny Meyer driving out of the snowbank. Saturday morning, Tuesday. Oh, don't hit that truck. And he's off. Seen any deer, you guys?
What?
Any deer at this crossing?
Yeah. One turkey. This is back when men were men. There's one right behind you. Go for Jim. Look at that. Got her rolling.
And here comes Jim.
Little push, Danny.
Jim's gonna help a guy get jump started. Won't start this morning. It's a view of St. Croix Lake.
Is that a buck? hanging pole right there, ain't it?
Buck hanging pole right there. The lodge.
Oh, that baby filled up tonight. These days? Oh, yeah.
I want some comments from our experienced hunters here on what their attitudes to the North Country is.
Wish we had a little more snow.
First we have rookie hunter Jason Meyer. Jason, what do you think so far?
I'm a rookie, so I have no comment yet.
Have you got lost yet?
No, not yet.
Have you been out in the woods yet?
No.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Bob Meyer, veteran of Sauk County hunting, now comes up to Douglas County. What are your first impressions?
I wish we had a little more snow.
This is on the lodge, though. You gotta walk down the snowbank.
I think this has been shoveled off.
Just don't fall.
Not bad.
Okay, stand in one spot and measure it on your knee.
Not right deep. Only up to there.
Okay. Okay, Highway 53 in Solon Springs. Where most of the people are this morning, most of the hunters. Well, we spent our breakfast. That's north. Fort Superior. Not too many vehicles that aren't four-wheel drive out this morning. Buck.
Look who shot him. That's amazing.
There's the guy that shot him.
That's right, right here.
Yeah.
There, got him with a knife. Got him with a knife. Yeah.
Zoom in on that.
Zoom right, yeah. You shouldn't have to zoom too much. Alright.
Yeah, and the one in the back is what Jim shot with his half a gun. This is the road that we're going on. This is Seabrick Road. We're going to get Jim's gun fixed. Jim said, let's go get breakfast. We left our guns in the motel. Jim's got a broken gun. We're on this road that has not been plowed out. We got
9:30 in the morning, we haven't even been out away from the breakfast table yet.
Now, if we were by chance to see a buck right about now, Jim has a broken gun, Jerry has no gun, I have no gun.
But we got a camera.
But we got a camera, we'll take the picture of it. Beautiful weather.
Apparently we got
I don't have Blaze Orange on, neither does Jerry.
We got
She
turn.
said-
Was there a right hand turn right up here?
Need the map, I don't know.
No, it just there. Look, it just shows it going to the right. Now imagine it must be right here, huh? What's this? Must be right up over this hill then.
I'm digging now, boys.
But then he ain't gonna make it.
He ain't gonna make it either.
He'll be great.
He'd be stuck.
Step there and just the middle. We got to go.
Going up the hill.
Yeah, that's after we get back.
God damn, I can't see nothing, boys.
The road says that there's a curve sign
You're
up
all right.
there.
Keep going. Yeah, I think right up there now. Okay, right up there now. You turn right.
I turn where?
Wait a minute.
Well,
Just
stop at this
Wait a minute.
intersection
You're going to the
up
right.
Just
Wait
slow
a minute.
down.
You better stop before you get. Oh, you don't know where you're going.
That
Take your
says,
windshield off,
that
or
says,
not, so you know where you're going.
that says Christopher Lane or
I
something.
think that's where you got to go.
Christopher.
Right.
Wait a minute.
I would say you turn to the
Yeah,
right.
but just,
You got to turn to the right.
yeah, but look at this big snowbank up here.
You better stop.
You better stop.
Just a minute, I'm gonna get up here where I can see what's
I don't know if the road goes to the left or right.
you got-
goes to the left.
Oh, stop! Look at this snowdrift up there.
You're going to get your... That's the road, I think.
Where? lie, you lie, you lie.
That's where we gotta go.
You lie. Does that look like a face of an honest person?
Take a picture of that tracks where we
That's
just
an
come
honest
through,
person.
Holy.
That guy lies right there.
Hey,
That's a face of a
I
liar.
tell you, you're making a good track though for them.
Oh yeah, I know. Man.
I gotta see.
Take get that up, Phil.
No, don't get that.
Who's the
Got the guns right now. Just in case.
Here we are, folks. Jim went up to get his hair done.
Gunsmith, he said. Not barber.
What do you think, guys?
We having fun yet?
I think so.
Wonder if there's any buck. Yeah, Son Smith, he lives over there. His real name is Bob, but it's Bob Jr., so they call him Son.
Sonny Smith.
Son Smith.
Sonny Smith. The gunsmith.
Dale says we're having dinner in Gordon at what? Highway House?
Halfway house.
Halfway House.
We
So
get
that's our next stop.
Halfway back to the halfway house.
Not in Gordon, on Sims Lake.
Well, that's right on Sims
It's
Lake.
right on Sims Lake.
And we're going to check Baker's out and see who wants Baker. See if Baker's got any girls.
Done.
The navigator scooped up again. It was that place out there that I said it was.
Well, big deal. Why didn't you pull in there then?
Where was the navigators?
Where was
the
this?
map.
How far back?
That place right over there.
here in the corner.
So we can go around this way.
There's Denny and Bob and the boys.
No, gotta get stocked. Let's make an adventure of it. So I'm gonna stand in the back. Shovel?
Shovel's right over here. You stock?
Yeah, Leroy.
No.
Shovel's right there.
Chevys don't get stuck.
What?
Chevys don't get stuck.
Chevys don't get stuck?
Where is it? There it is.
Yeah, Jay.
We're a little bit ahead.
Yeah, you're up on top of the snow pile. What a good idea. Oh, come on.
Back up a little bit. Don't back up very much.
Rock. Jason's down.
Good boy, Herb.
Now back. Forward. Now back a little bit. Oh. Now forward. He's got it now. A little bit more. Oh. Nothing to it. See, we've got to been around the block twice by now.
To our right is the Sims Lake section where Lawrence Meyer always used to hunt the first opening day. On the left, we're coming close to Ox Creek, where Denny went to get water to put out the fire. Snow is about foot deep, maybe? 2 foot deep, maybe?
About 2 foot. Almost knee deep.
Okay, guys, follow me.
We're following.
I got you this far, didn't I? Now I'm going to take you back into the wilderness of Douglas County to the original,
What's it?
the original Ox Creek campground. This is where all the stories originated. This is where Denny fell in the creek trying to get water to put out the fire that he started.
In the tent. The camper was up there, and George Craker and Lawrence stayed in the camper,
Okay.
and the rest of us stayed in the tent. Well, it was Don Idy's, I think it was Don Idy's tent, plus they had a gas or fuel oil
Okay.
furnace in there. Well, I, being one of the youngest one, got the north corner of the tent. Well, we would play cards in there. When we were playing cards, they'd always, the stove would heat the tent up nice, but then it would fizzle out and then it would get cold in there. So they were throwing, getting a cup of fuel oil,
Yeah.
and throwing it in there, and then it would poof like that, and then in a few minutes the tent would be nice and toasty again.
Yeah.
Well, I was, like I say, I was over here, and I remember Gerald Scholey was in one sleeping bag on the cot, and Dave Scholey was in another one, and I'm trying to think, your dad was there, I'm sure, and I think Jim was there, all in this big tent. Well, I woke up during the night and I was just freezing up, and because the thing went down, and I don't know, one of them said, well, throw some fuel, you get a cup and throw that in there, that'll warm it up. Well, so I went and I got a styrofoam cup, put some in there. Well, I didn't know that them guys, when they threw the fuel oil in there, they throw a cup and all. So I threw the fuel oil in there, and I brought the cup back out. Well, when it went poof, it followed my cup back out, and they'd spilled some outside of the stove, and in a matter of seconds, it was on fire in there. And everyone was trying to put the fire out while there was fuel on the ground, so it was kind of hard. And they told me, go down and get some water down to the creek. So I went down, and they turned around and they said, well, I told you to go down and get some water. And I said, I got some. And I don't know where they get the part where I fell in the creek, because I don't think I fell in the creek. Well, and anyway, we got the fire put out, and then it was, I don't know, it was below zero, I'm sure, and everything was wet, and we had so everybody said, well, we better head for home.
This is where Jim shot at the weasel.
Well, let's go. Keep talking as you're walking.
We got hunting to do. Yeah. Sometimes.
Well, let the guy with the gun walk in front. Get in there.
Well, I mean, here away.
Next to Dale.
Notice down here on the left, right there is Ox Creek. Denny had to run from our camp, which we'll show you where it was at, to the creek to get water and back up. Of course, it wasn't the weasel that Jim shot at ran right through here. Jim shot at him over here, missed him. And the weasel looked around and he was trying to figure out where the rabbit went. Then he got on the blood trail and followed him off into there.
I don't think I even shot.
Oh, he's got a memory. That man's got
I don't think I even shot, to tell you the truth.
Yes, you did.
I don't think so.
You remember this spot?
I didn't even shoot.
Man, that couldn't
Hey.
Huh?
Do I have the right spot?
Yeah, you're close.
Yeah.
A weasel come running into the camp, or actually it was a jackrabbit come running into the camp, and just squealing like crazy, and there was a weasel on his back. And he ran right, we were all standing there in a group talking, and a rabbit ran right between us to try to get rid of that weasel. And we kicked at it, and the weasel fell off the rabbit, and he took off. The rabbit lived anyhow.
Oh, wow. Did you ever shoot? Did anybody shoot at it?
No,
No.
nobody had any guns.
Okay.
I think we tried to find it, but we couldn't find it.
Okay.
If I remember right.
Alright.
I don't really remember that part of it too much.
Okay, so there was maybe a little legend around that because I think my dad remembers it that somebody shot at it. Maybe I think his memory was that you shot at the weasel a few times, but in the video you said no, I didn't shoot at the weasel.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't remember shooting at it.
Yeah. Was there a lot of that?
If I had shot at it, I got
You
it.
would've got
I would have never missed.
That's right. Growing up with my dad, was that a common thing where he would remember something one way and you would be like, no, that's
many times, yes, many times.
Yeah. I bet.
I don't know who's right, him and I.
Well,
we didn't always have the same memory of everything. I know that.
Well, I'm calling this the men, the myths, and the legends. So I'm not sure if that's a myth or a legend, but it's one of the two.
I'm close. There's the buck pole. Over there. That was over here. On this trail right here is where my gun misfired. Pa and I were walking up this trail and deer ran out and I pulled it up and boom. Yeah. The bottleneck section, I believe. Bob? No, if I remember right, the bottleneck section is right across there. The favorite section is the section behind that we came across. And the one next to the roadway where the lake was, and the hooker center. Just to the north.
I think that'd be the finest.
Is it
Drinking 1919 Rutgers, what we're
Is
drinking.
this VCR?
Right up there. Did you
Well,
get
it's
that?
good.
No. Generally when they get it new, then it's new choice.
No, he's had it for years. Had it for years. We've been following this one. We can't get away from it.
Straight.
Home sweet home.
Recyclable bags here.
You like that one Tom put it about where we went in the restaurant, always has the pictures taken.
Or you could eat.
That's yours too, Bob?
No. I just can clear this.
We got all have t-shirts made up. I survived the Northwoods deer hunt.
Throughout this adventure, I learned that this wasn't just a hunting trip. No, it was more of an excuse to spend time with Jerry and with each other because our time here on Earth isn't guaranteed. Jerry went on to live some very great years after the Gordon trip, and eventually his leukemia got the best of him in 1999. Bob passed away unexpectedly just a few years prior in 1996. Someone once said that families are like branches on a tree. We grow in different directions, yet our roots remain as one. The rest of our crew is getting older and our branches have grown in different directions, but our roots remain strong, thanks to Gordon, 1991.
It was Gordon, Wisconsin, 1991, where us and our ancestors learned how to hunt. The cancer was gonna cut Jerry's season short, so a 12-point buck's what we were hunting for. So we loaded into Jim's 78 Ford. The roads got icy, but ahead we fought. We stopped to hail some strangers on the side of the road. A Toyota dealt Jim's truck a blow. One last hunt in Gordon to honor a great man. We sure made some memories in that sacred land. And we know Jerry's looking down, smiling once again, thinking about that trip in 91 with the men, myths, and legends. Had a persevering crew, Dale, Denny, and Bob, Jason the youngster, and Jerry's son Tom. We finally got there and settled in, but the thick snow just wouldn't stop falling. 30 inches deep by the time we went out. There wasn't a single deer around. But Jerry laughed and smiled through it all. He was just happy to be with us all. One last hunt in Gordon to honor a great man. We sure made some memories in that sacred land. And we know Jerry's looking down, smiling once again, thinking about that trip in '91 with the men, myths, and legends. Well, we ended up in some dirty bar, drinking 1919 root beer. It couldn't have been better, 'cause we were meant to end up there. One last hunt in Gordon to honor a great man. We sure made some memories in that sacred land. But we know Jerry's looking down, smiling once again, thinking about that trip in '91 with the men, myths, and legends. We were men, myths, and legends.
Well, look on that snowmobile map. Pick an intersection.